Peace, family. It's the Friday after Thanksgiving. Cool, crisp day. And I know that traditionally this day is kind of called Black Friday, or at least in more recent tradition we call it Black Friday, and everybody goes out to the stores and buys all kinds of neat gadgets and things at super discount rates from the stores. And so I just wanted to take a minute to call some attention to the truth that everything that sustains humans on this planet comes either directly or indirectly from plants. And so everything that we're consuming, even when we go to the store and buy plastic gadgets and things like that that have been mass produced in big factories and shipped all over the world, it's all plants facilitating that whole process. All of the petroleum is ancient plants, Botricium and Equisetum. Ancient plants that broke down for a long time deep in the earth, and now we've found a way to pull them up and draw that energy into a form that we can use it to make machinery work. So really the most radical thing that we can do these days, the most revolutionary thing, the most re-evolutionary thing that we can do is to develop a deeper relationship with the plants. So in that interest, I wanted to share some ideas and some approaches that I've found very valuable for me in my journey of getting to know plants and hanging out with them and developing a relationship with them, which has been a wonderful experience, and it's something that I'll continue to do for the rest of my life. These are all ideas that were presented to me by a really right-on brother named Frank Cook. And if you've never heard of Frank Cook, I highly recommend looking him up. He's got hours and hours of stuff on YouTube, and I really value the wisdom and clarity and practicality in the message that he delivers. So giving thanks to Frank Cook and all the teachers that taught him, Jim Duke, Greenlight, Seven Song, a lot of good people that I've had the pleasure of knowing as well. So I kind of call these the 4 pillars of the green path. This is like the green path is the path that we step onto when we decide that we want to more consciously engage with the green beings, the photosynthetic beings, and even the fungal beings of the world. So the first step, the first pillar on the green path is just to take on this perspective that plants are people. They have a personality, they have consciousness, they have will, they make choices and decisions every day, and they have tendencies and they have work that they like to do in the world, and there are other beings that they like to associate with, that they like to hang out with. So you'll find them like running in these little tribes and circles, and you know, they have families, they have brothers and sisters and cousins and aunts and uncles and 5th cousin once removed, and you know, you can play around with that idea a lot, but it's really important perspective. And for me, that's really what helped me turn the corner in really keeping track of all the information and really being able to retain so much knowledge about each individual plant is because once I started looking at them as beings, learning all of these things about them wasn't so much about, accumulating some kind of factoids or information about some irrelevant subject. These were like little secrets that I was finding out about very dear friends. And when you learn something new about a friend, it, especially a friend that you really care about, that you're really loving on and really grateful for in your life, when you learn these things about them, they stand out to you because you respect that being so much, and there's this feeling that's associated with this new knowledge that comes in, and because of that feeling kind of impresses the information deeper in our hearts, and so it's more accessible, it's more available to us. Like you think about it, when you go out and somebody asks you about one of your friends, it's really easy for you to recall all of these different details about them, where they're from, what they like, what kind of car they drive, what school they went to, what they do for work, what kind of music they're into, who they hang out with. And these things are easy to recall because you have a relationship with them. And so it's very practical for us to look at the plants as beings, because it just helps us keep our information more straight. And it also helps us to kind of develop a feeling, develop a relationship, an elationship, to become elated. It helps us to really feel the liveliness that these beings transmit so effortlessly and gracefully. So that's the first step, is just look at the plants as beings, look at the mushrooms as beings, respect them as individuals, and interact with them in a way that honors that sacred relationship, whatever that means to you, rather than just like, what's its name and can I eat it? Or, how is that useful to me? How can I use that? Frank said, if you went around trying to use people, trying to use your friends, you wouldn't keep them for too long, right? They wouldn't tell you too much about themselves, because they know that if they tell you that they're a great masseuse or a massage therapist, that now you're going to try and use them for massage, or you're going to try and use them for their cooking or whatever their special talent is. So yeah, it's like, if you just went up to people and said, what's your name and what are you good for? What kind of responses do you think you would get? I can't imagine it would be too good. I haven't ever tried it, but if you decide to, let me know how it works out for you. So yeah, respect the plants as beings. That's the first pillar, foundational pillar, really the most important aspect of this walking on this green path in my heart and mind. And then the second pillar really stems from that, and that's get to know the plant families. So when I say plant families, I'm talking about their botanical family. I'm talking about, the whole study of botany started with this guy Linnaeus, and he decided that plants should be named unto themselves, rather than naming plants based on what they do for us, like, oh, that plant that tastes really good in the springtime, or that plant that has big juicy roots, or that plant that grows up on the hill, or that plant that grows down in the valley. He decided that plants should be named based on their flowers, based on how they have sex. Go figure. Humans being overly sexual again. But he chose to name them based on their flowers, which I think is a very useful way of doing it, because each flower has these unique characteristics, and when you get to know a plant's flower, you can start to tell, this family has this kind of flower, and that's across the board. So when you see the flower, you can recognize a plant down to its family pretty easily, once you're familiar with them, of course. And the botany, it's a valuable thing. It's good for us to get to know the botanical terms, get to know the Latin names, because there's so many different common names, and what one person is calling wild sarsaparilla here in the US might be something totally different from what somebody in the Caribbean is calling wild sarsaparilla. Like here we might be talking about Aurelia, and there they might be talking about Smilax. So, getting to know these Latin names like Aurelia nudicalis and Smilax regalii, that helps us to have a definite understanding that we're talking about the same plant, so you don't start, mistaking one friend for another friend. If everybody was just called Chuck, it would be real hard for us to have a conversation about Chuck in an intelligible way. We'd have to start adding on last names or, surnames or nicknames in order for us to keep one straight from the other. So that's what the Latin enables us to do. And the Latin, it can seem kind of intimidating, but really, especially for English-speaking people, Latin is a root for a lot of the things, for a lot of the words that we use. Our language evolved from Latin, and so it's really not so unapproachable. And when you get to know the Latin, when you start looking at these words, you see that things like xanthorrhiza, xantho means yellow, rhiza means root, and so this is yellow root in the Ranunculaceae family, the buttercup family. It's a buttercup family member that has berberines in it, and really cute plant. It grows down by the rivers in Tennessee and throughout Appalachia, especially southern Appalachia. I haven't seen it up north much at all. So yeah, xanthorrhiza is just, it's just another way of saying yellow root, and it's using a language that's kind of universal, or that nobody's gonna mess with too much because it's a dead language, so we don't have to worry about the rules of Latin changing all of a sudden on us. And there's a lot of value in the botany, because when we get to know the botanical terms, it makes it easier for us to identify plants, and when we can identify plants with certainty, we can start engaging with them with more confidence, because if you're looking at one plant and you're not sure who it is, you're going to be hesitant to interact with that plant, and even if you do get it right, because of your hesitancy, you might, kind of psychosomatically create some adverse reaction because of your own uncertainty. And this botany is a study of plants that's been going on for several hundred years. So if we just throw it out and say, oh, I'm not interested in learning Latin names, I'm not interested in learning the family, genus, and species, I don't need to know all of these specifics and details, I just want to know how I can use this plant, then we're really dismissing hundreds of years of interaction that people have had with plants. And if we're seeking to develop a real relationship with them, then it behooves us to look at all the stories, hear all of the different angles, hear the botanical stories, hear the phytochemical stories, hear the native stories or the indigenous stories, and to really put it all together and kind of piece things together and develop our own relationship and our own way of interacting with these beings, and hopefully discover new things and new ways of interacting with and honoring these beings. So this next step, very, very important. I think this is another one of the most critical ones, and Frank was absolutely emphatic about this. There are t-shirts, and we should make bumper stickers probably, but if they're not made already. But he used to always say, eat something wild every day, and that, I didn't realize how profound that really was until I started doing it. And after some time, it's really amazing. It creates such an impetus to go deeper and get to know more beings and get to know more ways of preparing foods, and you get more interested in the nutritional aspects of it, and you get more interested in the medicinal aspects of it, and you really like start getting excited about like, oh, you know, this chickweed is everywhere. I love it so much because everywhere I go I see chickweed, or everywhere I go I see dandelion, and it's like that old friend is like saying, hey, the plants are here to support you. We're happy that you're here. We're happy that you found us. Take some nourishment, you know, take some medicine, take what you need, receive whatever it is you need that we're offering. Take some blessing of beauty from our flowers or our fragrance, you know, some feeling of appreciation and well-being. So yeah, eating something wild every day changes everything. When you think about it from like a physiological standpoint, our bodies are made of the plants that we consume. Everything that we consume is either a plant directly or it's an animal that lived entirely on plants. So our bodies are made up of these plants that we're taking in. If we're taking in these really like kind of pampered and like I kind of look at them as being slaves, you know, these monocropped, mass-produced kind of plants that are grown in neat little rows. They're annual plants that only live 1 year, and you know, they're grown in these like really regulated conditions. Neat little rows, fertilized on a certain schedule, watered on a certain schedule, only given certain nutrients to make them big and juicy and appealing to the market, like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Our bodies are made up of 84 different elements. Where are all the other elements coming from? The soils have been so depleted in these monocrop kind of plant production sites, the industrial agriculture business. So with those depleted soils, we don't get any of the trace minerals or elements that we need, like selenium and cobalt and iodine and magnesium and, you know, manganese. There's so many different trace elements and minerals that we need in order for our bodies to really function at their peak. And these wild foods, not only do they provide that, but they're providing wild information. The conditioned, enslaved plants, they have very domesticated information. The wild plants have wild information. Their RNA is gotta be so much more fit. I mean, I'm not that deep into the whole DNA, RNA, genetics type of stuff, but I can only imagine the difference between like an annual grass grown, you know, monocropped by big ag versus the information that's contained in the acorn of a 350-year-old oak tree. So eat something wild every day. Super important. Third pillar of the green path. And the fourth pillar is super important right now. It's another key critical aspect of the green path for us to really get behind and embrace, and that's that everyone is a teacher. Everybody that you see, everybody that you know is a teacher. Everybody who has one little bit of information that can help us to go a little bit deeper with even one plant, we have an obligation to share that with each other, because right now it's so important for us to develop these relationships and for us to honor the plants and respect them and help them to thrive, because they're supporting all of us, and the way that we've been treating them, it's making it very difficult for them to continue supporting us. We need to learn these things and teach these things and share these traditions and share this knowledge and keep going deeper. So remember that you're a teacher. There's no end user to any of this. You know, this isn't knowledge for you to take and feel smart and, you know, go and enjoy better health and vitality through it. without sharing it. This needs to be shared, and it needs to be, pay it forward. We need to spread it on. So spread the word far and wide. Connect with the plants and keep on walking the green path. Love and light to you, family.